She said, "I'll work your fields, human. Just feed my hungry children." The dust from the crashed vessel still hung over the southwestern quadrant of Garrett's farm, casting an amber haze across the evening sky. He'd seen the ship descend 3 days ago, cutting through the atmosphere like a star falling to Earth. When he'd first approached the wreckage, he'd expected to find bodies, crew or cargo. He wasn't sure which. Instead, he'd found her. She stood in the center of the clearing now, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Her skin was a deep blue-gray, textured like weathered stone, and her eyes held the vertical pupils of a predator. 2 smaller figures clung to her legs, her children, she'd explained in careful English, one of the 3 universal languages her translator implant recognized. Garrett sat on the porch railing of his ranch house, studying the scene before him. He was a practical man, a 3rd-generation farmer who'd inherited 2,000 acres of struggling wheat and cattle land. He'd never been one for drama or complications. His life was ordered. Sunrise to sunset, seasons turning into years, the good harvests mixed with the lean ones. The tall alien had called herself Kess'tari, though her true name, she'd said, existed in a frequency his human throat couldn't produce. She'd appeared at his farm gate the morning after the crash, her translator crackling with interference, her children pressed close to her sides. Their skin carried hints of lighter blue, almost purple in certain light. "I do not ask for mercy," she'd said, her words measured and deliberate. "I ask for work. My ship will not fly again. The emergency rations will last perhaps 2 more weeks. After that, my children will hunger." Garrett had stood there, his coffee cooling in one hand, his shotgun still inside the kitchen. The government would be coming for her eventually. They always did with extraterrestrials. There were protocols, divisions, facilities designed for exactly this scenario. But her children had looked at him with those intelligent eyes, and something in him, something he thought he'd buried years ago when the divorce papers came through, had stirred. "I can offer 4 hours of labor each day," Kess'tari continued. "My physiology is adapted for high-gravity worlds. Your tasks will be completed with efficiency. In return, I require sustenance. Enough for 3. We consume organic matter, plant or animal. We are not selective." Garrett had set down his coffee. "Can you work cattle?" "I can learn," she'd replied. That had been 5 days ago. Now, watching her move through the late afternoon light, Garrett could barely remember his life before her arrival. She worked with methodical precision, her powerful frame and sharp intelligence making her invaluable. The cattle, initially spooked by her alien appearance, had settled into her presence. She'd already identified 3 of his heifers as needing medical attention, something the local veterinarian had missed, and had repaired the eastern fence line with materials salvaged from the barn. Her children were different. They were curious, sometimes playful in a way that reminded Garrett of human kids, but with an alien edge. The smaller one had spent an hour yesterday watching a butterfly, its movements eerily still, as if decoding the insect's flight pattern. "You're thinking hard thoughts," Kess'tari said, approaching from the direction of the fields. She moved with an alien grace, her gait slightly different from human biomechanics, but no less elegant. Garrett climbed down from the railing. "They're coming tomorrow," he said. "Government agents. I got a call from the state office. They know about the crash. They know I've been harboring. Well, they didn't say it politely." Kess'tari was quiet for a moment. Her children emerged from the barn and ran to her, their small blue forms darting between the wooden posts like shadows. "I have known this moment would come," she said finally. "I am prepared. I will leave peacefully. My children, and I will not cause difficulty." "To where?" Garrett asked. "You said your ship is finished." "The government has facilities," she said, and for the first time, He heard something beneath her translator. Fear, he realized. Places where they keep those who fall from the sky. My children are young. They will adapt. Garrett stood silent, watching her stand among the setting sun's rays, her blue skin catching the light like deep water. My father was a stubborn man, he found himself saying. Ran this farm into near bankruptcy because he refused to modernize. But he also refused to sell out when corporations tried to buy him. He said some things matter more than practical sense. I think he was usually wrong about that. Garrett paused. But not always. That night, Garrett made calls. He contacted a lawyer in Santa Fe who specialized in immigration cases. He reasoned that extraterrestrial law couldn't be so different from the terrestrial kind. He reached out to a journalist he knew from the state university who'd written about bioethics. He called two of his neighbors who'd worked with him on county water rights cases, men who understood that sometimes you had to fight against bureaucratic inertia. By dawn, he had something fragile but real taking shape. By the time the 3 black SUVs appeared at the end of his drive, he had Kess'tari and her children dressed in borrowed clothes, prepped with talking points, and seated at his kitchen table. The agents were professional and polite, which somehow made it worse. They had paperwork and authority and the absolute certainty of institutional power. We're taking the subjects into protective custody, the lead agent said, folder in hand. He was a tall man with an efficient manner. It's for their own safety and ours until we determine. They're not subjects, Garrett interrupted. Kess'tari is an employee. She has a labor contract. He slid the document across the table, a hastily drawn-up agreement that likely wouldn't hold up in any court, but it existed. Mr. Garrett, these are extraterrestrial entities. They're not covered by. Actually, came a voice from Garrett's phone, propped on the table and on speaker. They might be. Habeas corpus protections, if we push it right, might apply to sentient beings, regardless of origin. I've been waiting for this case for a decade. The constitutional questions alone will keep you in court for years. The agent listened to the lawyer for 30 seconds, his jaw tightening. There's also the matter of due process, continued the journalist, who was recording from Garrett's porch with 2 witnesses. How many photographs can this story generate? Federal agency separates alien mother from hungry children. What does that headline do for your department's public relations? What happened next wasn't a dramatic courtroom victory or a sudden change of heart. It was bureaucracy fighting bureaucracy. It was paperwork and delays, and the realization that 5 years of litigation would be messier than simply allowing an experimental arrangement. By the time the sun reached its zenith, the agents had departed with a compromise. Kess'tari could remain on Garrett's property under strict monitoring for a period of 12 months, at which point the situation would be reassessed. A year later, Garrett stood on the same porch, watching Kess'tari work the fields alongside him. Her children attended the local elementary school now, learning human history and mathematics. They were still alien, still other, but they were also becoming part of the community in small ways. The younger one had joined the 4-H club, the older one helped Garrett with bookkeeping. I have been thinking, Kess'tari said one evening, as they repaired fence posts together, that perhaps I might purchase land of my own. Nearby. My labor has generated income. I would like to establish crops suited to my physiology. My children might work beside me. We could build something that is ours. Garrett nodded, unsurprised. He'd been waiting for this moment. It felt inevitable, not defeat, but transformation. I know some people, he said. We could make it work. As the sun descended and the sky turned purple, Garrett realized that his father had been right, and wrong, and right again. Some things did matter more than practical sense. Some of them were messy. Some of them changed you in ways you couldn't predict. But the wheat was growing well this year. The cattle were strong. And his farm, for the first time in a decade, felt like something more than just a place of survival. It felt like home.